Hey, this is Davidas, and today I'm going to show you how to connect Firebase to this Bootstrap form. So first of all, we have to navigate to the Firebase and set it up. So in Google search, let's search for Firebase and select the official Firebase site. Then let's click on the Go to Console. We are redirected to the account selection page, and I'm going to select one of my Google accounts. After you log in, you are redirected to the Firebase console, and I suggest creating a new project. You probably have a sample project pre-made by Firebase for you. So let's name our project form, and we can leave the country or region as is, as it's not important in this step. So after this is done, let's go to the authentication and set up some sign-in rules and methods. So after we select the Out tab on the left, let's click the Setup Sign-in Method button. We're going to select the email password mode and just click Enable and Save. After we do that, let's create one user to act as our administrator. You're going to click the Users tab at the top and then click the Add User button right here. I'm going to enter my own email and this very secure password. After we have the initial user, we can continue to the last step, and that is to set up the Firebase inside our JavaScript file. So first of all, we have to navigate to our project root directory right here and click Add Firebase to your web app. Then what we're going to do is we're going to select this text, copy it, but not close this window yet, right? Then we're going to navigate to our empty project in CodePen, right? We can name that like form Firebase, and we're going to paste that inside the JavaScript section. We have to set it up our CodePen, of course, and let's click on the settings, and inside the JavaScript, let's make sure that we have a Babel selected as our JavaScript preprocessor. Let's add jQuery, and inside this second section, let's add this URL from the Firebase console, right? This one. So let's paste it right here. And that's it. Oh, let's not forget to add the Bootstrap, because we're gonna use some of the Bootstrap styling. Okay, all done. Save, close. Let's immediately tidy our JavaScript, and let's give ourselves a bit more space to work with the JavaScript. First of all, what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this var to const to make it ES6 type of code. The second thing which we're gonna do is do a proper initialization, right? So let's have the traditional jQuery starter function, right? And have all of our code in here. Okay. So we are all done with the JavaScript console. We can close this window, right? This pop-up window, and click on this database tab on the left. This is our Firebase database, and it's currently completely empty. We're not gonna add anything manually. We're just gonna use our form to populate this database. To do that, let's make our initial HTML form structure. I'm going to use Emmet to make the HTML typing faster. So Emmet is enabled by default on CodePen. So feel free to use that to have your code exactly match my code. We're gonna create our first component. Remember, we have to wrap them into form group class, and inside it we're gonna have a label. I'm going to ID our input. I'm gonna have the ID of our input JS email, and it's gonna be email input, and the input itself will have an ID of JS email, as I've said, a class of form control, and I guess that's it. Let's save and see how it looks like. Yeah, it looks great. It should have a bit of top padding, but we're gonna fix that a bit later. So let's copy the exactly same structure and have our password setup. Okay, the password is set up. Now the last one is gonna be message. We're gonna use the email and password just for authentication, and we're gonna use this message to actually store this message inside the database. Okay. Oh, it's supposed to be text. I'm sorry. Save and run. Okay, so all of the three input fields are ready. The last one is gonna be button with class. And it's gonna be have a text of submit. Let's give it an ID of JS submit. Okay. Save, run, see how it looks like. Great. So our HTML is ready. Let's really quickly add some CSS. So I'm going to add padding to our container, and then I'm going to make it 1 rem. Okay, let's see how it looks like. Good enough. It has a proper padding on all the sides. So we are done with the CSS too. Let's continue our work with JavaScript from now on. So first of all, let's create a selector for our form, right? So let's start with jQuery selectors. Our form has a class of JS form, right? So we're gonna select that, and we're gonna attach an event listener on submit. We're gonna pass it this ES6 type function as a callback. And the first thing which we're gonna do is called the prevent default method of the event variable. Okay, so this kind of makes our form not reload the page. Then let's grab the email, password, and message values. All of these have JS email, JS password, and JS message IDs. It's always a good idea to log out our values to see what we got. So we're gonna do that right now. And we're gonna log out all three of these variables. Okay, let's save and run. And also open our console to see what results are gonna be printed out. So this is the email which I have used. This is the password which I have used. And this is the first message. Okay, it looks like that everything works as it's supposed to. So we can connect to the Firebase now. To do that, we first have to authenticate. So we call the Firebase .auth method. Then we call a sign in with email and password method, where we supply the email and password. This method returns promise. So we have to deal with promises now. On success, it returns a user object, and on error, it returns an error. So we're gonna console log the error, and if this promise is successful, then we're gonna connect to the database itself. To do that, we're gonna call the Firebase .database method .ref, which we're gonna use messages as our container for the messages, .push, and in here we're gonna supply an object. Okay, let's fix the spacing. And this object is gonna be just our message, right? So I think this should work. Let's try it. I'm gonna press save, and I'm gonna press run. Okay, let's try the submit. It logged out again. There's nothing logged out, so that means there's no error. And let's check our Firebase console if indeed it has the message. So I immediately see that we have a new field messages, and inside it we have a second message, right? So let's try it one more time, like the third message. Click submit again, and right here we see the third message right now. Okay, so it's all good. We have a fully working single page application. There are still a couple of steps left. First of all, I'd suggest saving the email and password so the user don't have to supply them every single time when they want to post a message. Okay, so we have to have something what can be called a state inside this application, and it's just gonna be a variable, and we're gonna put this variable above the on submit event listener. So we name it state, and it's gonna hold the email and password. Inside the event listener, we're gonna check if the input fields are empty or not, and if they are, we're gonna use the email and password stored inside the state. Okay, we're gonna do that like that. This is the OR command, which just checks if the first argument is true, and if it is, it returns the first argument. If it's false, it returns the second argument. Okay. So in our case, we are just checking if the email and password fields are empty or not. If they are, we're gonna use whatever is stored inside the state. Okay. Then we should really hide those fields, since after the user successfully authenticates, we know that the password and the email is correct. So what we're gonna do is, just when we know that the authentication was successful, we're gonna just hide those fields. Okay, we're gonna do that like that, using add class hidden. Hidden is a special class supplied to us by Bootstrap, so it should really be enough to hide those two fields. Okay. By the way, if you're gonna, this is probably not the correct structure, since if you look at our HTML, we can see that it's gonna only hide the input field, but what we really want to hide is both the label and the form group, right? So we will wrap those two, email and password, inside another div with an ID of JS login data, and inside it we're gonna place our two input fields, right? Let's check if, first of all, let's tidy HTML, save and rerun, check if it still looks okay. Yeah, it still looks okay. So the HTML should be fine. We're just gonna use this ID of JS login data. Okay. So instead of the JS email, I'm using the JS login data. I don't need the second one. It's gonna be all good, right? Probably before that, we should really store our email and password inside the state, right? So we can do that using like state email is equal email, state password is equal password. Okay, so these commands just stores the last email and password into a state, right? Don't worry that I'm using the const here, since it's an object, and object properties can be changed even when you define the variable itself using const. Okay, so there's not going to be an issue right here. Moreover, the last thing which I think we should do is select the form again and clear all the fields, right? So I'm copying the jQuery selector and I'm calling a method trigger, and it's going to be triggering the reset event. Okay, let's save and run, see if it works. So we can see that it worked. Those two fields are hidden, and let's clear the console. So the first two fields are hidden. That means it's the login was successful. We stored the email and password inside the state, and we have reset all of the form fields. Okay, so let's add the sixth message. Yep, looks good. The form was reset again. The message was clear. Let's see if we have a sixth message. Yep, it still works. It was using the state email and password. So I think we are done with this example. It shows you how to create single page application with Firebase and store whatever the user is inputting in a form in a database.